got it?
Welcome everyone. It's 10:30 on a Monday morning. Don't tell me there's not energy out there to elect Nate McMurray. It's 10:30 on a Monday. After a tough Bills game, we all made it out. I'm Chairman Jeremy Zellner from the Erie County Democratic Committee. I want to thank you all for being here. We are really excited to have our national chairman here with us today to kick this grand opening off along with our elected officials. And I have the honor of introducing the leader of the labor movement here in Western New York, because they are the leaders of this resistance. The labor community is the leaders of the resistance to what's happening in Washington, and we are proud to stand with them every day. So I want to bring up my friend, Mr. Richard Lipsitz.
Good morning, brothers, sisters, friends, and allies. This is a real fortuitous event, and I'm really very proud that I was asked to speak this morning. Our labor movement stands for the defense of Medicare, the defense of Social Security, for fair taxes for all, for quality health care for all, and we also stand for democratic rights for all Americans, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from. Our democratic system is in danger of being overthrown by the President of the United States and his allies in the Congress. There's no wall between the fact that we are for economic rights and that we are for political democracy and justice for all ordinary people. Without democratic rights, there can be no economic justice, brothers and sisters. And the converse is true, too. Economic justice cannot be achieved without democratic rights for all Americans, and that includes the right to organize the union and bargain a collective bargaining agreement. The election in the 27th district is going to test this proposition, and it's going to test it in a way that we have never seen before. The entire country is watching the 27th district. It's not an exaggeration to say that we could be the district that actually flips the Congress from the control of the right wing of the Republican Party to a progressive Democratic agenda. Now, I'm come from a labor movement that's filled with cynics and wise guys. Everybody knows that. I'm one myself. And people have said to me more than once, well, you know, even an indicted criminal can get elected to Congress. And the fact of the matter is that has happened in American history. But I'm not a fool, neither are you. It's not an advantage to be an indicted felon and run for office. And that's what we're faced with right now today, that the indicted congressman, the sitting congressman, the 27th, is still on the ballot. Nate McMurray is our candidate. He's a good and honest man. We are getting to know him better every single day. He's hard work. Yeah, that's right. He's hardworking. He's a genuine person. There's no BS with him. I said it before. The entire country is watching. So, on behalf of the Western New York AFL-CIO, we pledge to do our part and elect Nate McMurray in the 27th this fall. I would like nothing more than be able to make lots of speeches like this between now and Election Day. Lots of speeches. Now, I get a real privilege now. I get to introduce our Congressman Higgins, Brian Higgins, a good friend of our labor movement, a strong supporter.
Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here for Nate McMurray. We're joined by John LaFalce, an iconic member of the United States Congress for many, many years. Just a wonderful man. We have State Senator Tim Kennedy here, who just had a resounding victory on Sue Maxwell Barnes, who is our new county court judge. Tom Perez, the National Democratic Chairman. And as you know, we're here for Nate McMurray. Let me tell you something about Nate McMurray. I was a fan of his before he even thought about running for Congress, and I'll tell you why. As supervisor of one of the most conservative towns in all of Western New York, Grand Island, he had the novel idea to champion waterfront access on an island, Grand Island. But the point is, for 40 years, nobody did that. Nate McMurray went up against established interests to accomplish that as a quality of life issue for the people that live on Grand Island. That accomplishment will far outlive him in the next generation. Great, great accomplishment. Nate McMurray, as a town supervisor, went after the state bureaucracy. For 30 years, the whole town was bemoaning the fact that they had to stop, and the traffic congestion, the environmental problems that imposed on that community, the financial injustice. He fought the state bureaucracy. You know what they told him? Nate, just wait a couple of years, we'll get to it. He says, I'm not waiting. The time to act is now. And he forced the state bureaucracy to do what was right on behalf of his constituents immediately. Nate McMurray. Now Nate McMurray is running for the United States Congress against some very, very tough odds. But in the end, what people are looking for is decency, of equality, and of opportunity. Those are fundamentally American values and American principles. That is the message that Nate McMurray is taking to the people of this congressional district, and I am confident, along with all of you, that he will be successful come this November. Thank you for being here for Nate McMurray.
Thank you very much, Brian. I am honored to be here. I'm honored to be standing with Dick Lipsitz, Brian Higgins, Nate McMurray, and Tom Perez. This is really an important race. I never thought that I would stand before anybody and say the greatest danger to the United States of America and the greatest danger to the world is the President of the United States. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the greatest danger is that group of individuals who I call the enablers. And who has been the chief enabler of them all? The indicted member of a Congress. Indicted with such granularity, such specificity, that while there may be a presumption of innocence for all individuals until convicted, that stands in a criminal court. But it doesn't stand before the electorate who must decide who is going to represent them in the United States Congress. There are many questions that voters must ask themselves and about individuals who they choose to represent them. And hopefully they will look to core values. What does this individual stand for? What is his code of conduct? What is his or her morality? I first came in contact with the McMurray Code of Conduct decades and decades ago, when a young man then, Nate's older brother Court, worked for me in my Buffalo office. And I remember talking with young Court, and at that time being impressed by his morality, his code of conduct, his sense of obligation to care for neighbors, which was the code of conduct, the values of the entire North Tonawanda McMurray family. That's really what's at stake here. the individual whose values are our values. Tom Perez spoke last night and briefly mentioned the Gospel of St. Matthew. The Gospel of St. Matthew, where we are enjoined to love our neighbors. How do you love your neighbors? You love your neighbors by caring for your neighbors. In the 27th Congressional District, there are almost 750,000 neighbors. Do we want a congressman who's interested in glitter and glamour, who's interested in going to cocktail parties and amassing mountains of monies? Do we want... No, we want a congressman who wants to care for our neighbors. After I retired from Congress, I became a professor at Canisius College, and I conducted public policy forums on the corporal works of mercy, and feeding the hungry, sheltering the homeless, caring for the sick, welcoming the stranger. And Tom Perez touched on that last night, and all I could think is I became aware of the core values in his family too. Because while I was on the board of the National Alliance to End Homelessness, I realized that his wife, Anne-Marie Perez, also served for over 2 decades now, caring for the homeless. These technical things. Sorry I didn't turn that phone off. One of my problems is I'm not sure how to turn it off and how to turn it on. I'm of that generation. Look, let me get to the quick. I want to introduce now somebody who I think is perhaps the very best person we could have had as our candidate for this race right now. Not only because of his core values, but because of his life experiences. I mean, there are very few individuals in the entire United States of America who are ever honored with a Fulbright scholarship. A Fulbright scholar. That's amazing. People say, oh, he's the supervisor of Grand Island. Yeah, that's true, but he's so much more than that. You have to be really rare, special to become a Fulbright scholar. And then he's also an attorney. But you know, of all the attorneys I know, maybe 1 out of a couple of hundred also have their Master of Laws degree. Not just their Bachelor of Laws degrees, but their Master. That's exceptional. Nate is that exceptional. And you must... You must be able to speak the English language fluently. That's a sine qua non. Our president does not qualify in that regard. But Nate does more than that. Nate speaks Chinese fluently and Korean fluently. And where are 2 of the greatest hotspots in the world right now? China and our relations with them. Korea and our relations with them. Who is best prepared to go to Washington, D.C. right now and become a leader in conducting the relations with these 2 superpowers? I used to say Nate can win. But now, as I've seen the enthusiasm of the people of the 27th District and environs, I now say Nate will win. Our next congressman, Nate McMurray.
Just a little bit overwhelming. Thank you so much. Pretty good for Monday at 10 o'clock, right? I mean, thank you so much for coming. I have to give some thank yous to a lot of people that have been there before I was there. I mean, I feel in many ways I am a standard bearer for something much, much larger than myself. And there have been people who've been fighting against a corrupt system here in Western New York for a long, long time. And I want to start first with all of those who stood out in front of Christopher Collins' offices. Raise your hands if you were one of those people. Andrea, where are you? Raise your hand, Andrea. Andrea is one of the people who started a group called Citizens Against Chris Collins. And, you know, she was there saying this is wrong, this man has ethical violations, like many others that were there, saying we need to change this. We cannot have a man like this representing us. But what happened? The system that supported him, that took pictures with him, that gave money to him, they told Andrea and they told all of you to go home. You don't belong here. And that's exactly the message they told me. Back in January when I was driving around by myself in my Ford Fusion, going to small towns, meeting you guys, I was getting the same message. Who are you to stand up against Chris Collins? The man has $80 million. You have 80 bucks. Who are you to go in the room against this man? You don't belong here. Go back to Grand Island. But so many of you there were supporting me, believing in me. And then I'm going to say it. When forces in our own party said, Nate, you don't belong here, you guys were there, and you said, we want Nate to be there. And I'm not going to forget it. I'm not going to forget it. I am going to continue to listen to you. I'm going to continue to visit you, not because it's some burden, but because I like doing this. I like visiting the public. I like hearing your ideas. I have become a much better candidate, a much better future congressman because of the thousands and thousands of hours I spent talking to each one of you at farmers markets, at fairs, at different events. And we have done that for the last year. And we were together and learning and growing together. And I keep saying this, you can feel the momentum building. In the last several weeks, we have doubled the number of our volunteers. We have doubled the number of our donations. We have doubled the energy and enthusiasm. It's like a small avalanche that started off with a little snowball that's rolling downhill and getting bigger and bigger every single day. And it's going to build and build and build until we have a victory on November 6th. Now, you remember my story. My mom's here. Mom, raise your hand. I always do this when Mom shows up. She was here yesterday, too, cleaning the floor of this place, getting it ready for it. So my mom is the best. She always gave me a sense of optimism and hope and a zest for life. We didn't have a lot growing up. We didn't go to private school. We struggled. I mean, you know my story. My dad was in the unions. By the way, I got to say this. To have union support on my side, from a kid from working class background from North Tonawanda, I am so proud to have the UAW and the USW. Union jobs are the jobs that hold our country together. I will be there for the unions because I know you protect the people of our region. You protect America. You protect the middle class. You can see a direct correlation between the decline in union population and union membership and the decline of the fortunes of the middle class in America. The unions are the middle class in America. I will have your back. When I see a USW guy here, or when I see a guy here from the teachers union, I just have such a great sense of pride because I know how hard you work and how many people have taken shots at you and disregarded you, and you have endured the last 20 years a marketing campaign that has undermined you in every single way, but you have stayed strong. But let me tell you, we are going to get stronger. We are going to get stronger and stronger. You got that bicep on your posters. That bicep means something. You keep hitting those reps, and you're going to grow that bicep, and you guys are going to get stronger and stronger in the years to come. Thank you so much. I appreciate all you do, and I will be there with you. I want to talk about Sue Maxwell Barnes for a second. Sue was with me a million events, and she's going to be a fantastic new county clerk judge. I appreciate everything you've done, and I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud to know you. Angela Marinucci. Angela Marinucci from Grand Island, New York. Angela is so much fun. You should have saw her at the Union picnic. She was dancing. She was keeping the crowd alive. She's a blast, and she was at the Bills game with me yesterday. She is a wonderful person, and you are going to do a wonderful job on November 6th. Now, let me say, I got to get through a few more thank yous. I'm sorry, I don't get this opportunity very often, but I got to say thank you to John LaFalls. For decades, this man had our back. For decades. And he's right. My brother worked for him. And he remembered that we would get a card from Mr. LaFalls every single Christmas. I saw his son grow up on my mantle in our house. It was a big deal for us to get that card. He remembered us. We weren't some rich family. We weren't donors. We weren't big shots. But he treated us with great respect and dignity. And I am so grateful for that. And seeing that postcard with the seal on it, or seeing the letters he sent my family, it gave me hope that there was a future for me as well. And John, you are just, if you ever get the chance to sit down with him one-on-one, I got to say this, he is a brilliant man as well. He will speak to you about philosophy and political history. He is just a decent and kind person. And to have him speak on my behalf, it just fills my heart with pride. I'm so thankful, John. Thank you so much. Congressman Higgins is here. Congressman Higgins believed in me again when very few people did. He came to me on Grand Island. He sent his people. He shook his neck out and said, we have to build that trail on the West River. He didn't have to do that, but why did he do that? Did he do that because he was going to get some votes out of it? He did it because it was the right thing to do. And in this era of polling and putting your finger in the air and seeing which way the wind is blowing, having a politician do the right thing, regardless of the political blowback and political consequences, is an amazing thing. This man deserves a ton of respect. Can I get a lot of applause for Mr. We have Senator Kennedy here, the standard bearer for the Democratic Party. If we don't take back our state lawmaking bodies, if we do not do this, everything falls apart. One of the things we're learning today of this message that we have today, I know it's hot, hang in there, guys. Wait till you see the chairman, he's amazing. But we learned something today, that we build from the grassroots up. The reason why we are standing here today and we have a hope in this election is because we built from the grassroots up. We built from the diners, from the local parties, the picnics and the parades up. And guess what? When we do things that way, good things happen. And we have the chairman here today acknowledging the efforts you guys have put in, which is an amazing thing. But we can only do that if we fight in every House race, in every Senate race, in every council race, in every clerk race, everything. Every race we need to fight back. Now let's talk about the movement. Clap for that. That's big. Now let's talk about the movement we're seeing right now. We're seeing Democratic Party organizations forming across this region in places they didn't even have a party before. Now in Farmington, when we first went there, they had about 4 people. The last time we went there, they had over 100 people to see us. In Hemlock, we were out in Hemlock, we were in Livonia, these small towns. We had a school gym bigger than this, full of people. I drove up and I said to myself, this can't be for us. We are in the wrong spot. And I saw Welcome Nate McMurray. I said, oh my gosh, I better get ready for this. We have had that type of enthusiasm across our region. I think it's in part because we built slowly, bit by bit. We believed we could break this machine if we kept pushing and pushing and pushing. We couldn't win in one day, but we could win slowly. And we visited Albion, we visited Warsaw. And if you guys are listening out there in Albion and Warsaw and Farmington and Canandaigua right now, I love you, I miss you. I'm sorry you couldn't be at the grand opening out here. Thanks for all you've done. We're gonna win this together. So why do I wanna win? Well, I wanna win because this is the most important election in our lifetime. They say that every time. But you know, you guys watch TV, you know this is an important election. We wake up every morning with that uneasiness in our stomach, right? What's coming next? What's going to happen? But I'm here to remind you guys that we have a lot of work to do. I'm out there every single day knocking doors, visiting people. I'm out there meeting new people, trying to bring people into our group, trying to get more people in this room. I know we have some independents here. I know we have some Republicans here. I visited you earlier. And part of my message has been from the get-go that we are not opposing camps. This isn't the Bills versus the Patriots. We are all Americans. We are all Americans. Now, don't mistake what I'm going to say, but I've said it over and over again since January. There is a reason people voted for Donald Trump. And there are some bad reasons, but there's some good reasons too. And that's because his message resonated. It was a powerful message. It was a message saying that a lot of people in America have been forgotten. They've been abandoned. It was a message saying we have bad trade deals that don't help people at the USW, people at the UAW. And it made sense. It was a right message, whether we want to admit it or not. And he might be the greatest salesman of all time, but people like him. The reality is that message was powerful. The problem is his answers to the problems he was talking about don't make sense. It's illogical. It doesn't work. You can't use the soy farmers out here in Western New York and throw them in the garbage for some nonsensical trade war. We can't. You can't pretend the rest of the world doesn't exist. I would love to get our milk into China, our yogurt into China. I would love to find those opportunities for our markets, for our different products we sell here in Western New York. We have to do that, but we have to be wise about it. And it's very clear that this man cannot do it, and neither can the team that supports him. And part of the duty of a congressman is to be a check on that power and have him understand that the solutions you're proposing simply do not work. They are false. They've been proven false, and they're not helping regular Americans. We keep hearing about how the stock market's booming, things are going great. I don't care how many startups are in Silicon Valley. I care how many startups are in Batavia. So what am I going to do? Let's talk broad principles for a second. Number one, first and foremost, I know how we can help people right here. We can guarantee health care for every single American. No more excuses. Do not tell me we can't do it. We are America. We can do anything we put our mind to. And we're going to figure this problem out, because the day of people unable to pay for diabetes medication, for people making the decision between, do I take my kid to the doctor or do I buy groceries, in the greatest country in the history of the world, the most wealthy and powerful country in the history of the world, must end. We're also going to fight for Social Security protection. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. How many of you guys in this room are close to retirement or retired? Well, of course, it's a Monday at 10 o'clock. It makes sense. But you guys know how much you depend on Social Security and how much our region's economy depends on Social Security. Do not let them tell you it's an entitlement. You earned it. You need to get mad about it. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. Oh, good. Yeah, she said she is mad. She should be mad. Listen to this. We just passed a tax cut for $2 trillion deficit that they told us is going to put Social Security at risk. They told us. Brian told us. They told us, do not do this. And they did it anyway. Not for some great scientific achievement, not to help build industry or build the economy. They did it so guys like Chris Collins could have another penthouse in Manhattan. Hey, and by the way, I got to say, Chris, my family's been here 7 generations. I hate to use the Sarah Palin line, but I can see the 27th district from my house. And this guy was calling me a carpetbagger when he was arrested in his penthouse in Manhattan? I mean, come on. There's nothing genuine in what they're saying. We need to fight back. The next thing we're going to fight for is infrastructure. It will create union jobs. It will help. I'm someone who's been blessed. I've been to dozens and dozens of countries, both as a resident and a traveler, as a business person. I've had a very unique experience. And guess what I've seen? Every country in the world that we compete with is building infrastructure for the next century. Meanwhile, we're putting Band-Aids on the infrastructure of the last century. And I'm not just talking about the roads with potholes. I'm not just talking the bridges that are rated a D. I'm talking also about the things we don't see, the pipelines underground, all the infrastructure that's under us, the sewage lines. We need to invest in America, or our children will not be able to inherit the same America I inherited. And on that point, we also need to invest in protecting our farms. Our farms. And along with it, our environment. On Grand Island, where I live, 80% of the world's fresh water goes by my house every day. Of North America's fresh water goes by my house every day. 80%. 20% of the entire world's fresh water. That is a precious resource, more precious than gold, more precious than oil. And in the years to come, we are going to see that. But we also don't talk enough about the soil that we have here. I'm someone who's been all over the world. I can tell you, you can't go in a backyard in Beijing and just plant some tomatoes and hope they grow. It doesn't work. Sure can't do that in Dubai. My mom's producing zucchini coming out of her ears. We have this blessed land. We need to leverage that to help our farmers. And we need to treat farming like a national security issue. If we don't protect our farms and we don't produce food here, where are we going to get food from? We need to protect our farms and make sure our farmers are thriving. Now I'm going to end with this, and I'm going to introduce the chairman, who's a wonderful speaker. And I met him for the first time last night. This guy's a Buffalonian. I mean, he knows our streets. He knows our restaurants. I am so proud that he's here. I didn't know him. I met him last night. I'm like, wait a second, I like this guy. He's a heck of a speaker, and he knows our region. He knows our people. He will fight for our people. We need to fight. So this is my ask to you. I want you to reach beyond your party. Reach beyond your safety zone. I say this all the time. I won my first election by how many votes? You guys know people. 2 votes on election night. I always say this. Look at the person next to you. That's 1 vote. I'll give you that one free. Go get another one today. We need to get people to vote. This is going to be an uphill battle. We aren't even close to the finish line. Do you realize this is a region where that party machine, the party machine that knew Mr. Collins was so corrupt, they knew how dirty he was, a couple years ago, they elected a guy who was dead. Did you know that? And they nominated a guy here who had a 6-0 congressional ethics finding against him, bipartisan. They said, we don't care. We're nominating him anyway. This is the machine we're up against. They think they can parachute somebody in and say, we don't care about you guys. We don't care about Andrea. We don't care about all the people in fighting for the right causes. We want a mulligan. We're going to hit a reset. We don't care. And they might be right. They're going to be right unless you vote, unless you push. This is going to be a narrow, thin victory if we win. It might be 1 vote, not 2. It's going to be close. Do you want to have us lose by 50 votes on November 6th? No. We need you out there. We need you getting people rallied up. So this is what you can do. You can sign these sign-in sheets. You can go knocking with us. You can come to this office. You can make phone calls with us. We're going to have cycles of that. You can write letters to the editor. I'm a strong believer in what the Founding Fathers said. The pen is mightier than the sword. We need you writing. Write to your friends. I met some group the other day. They wrote 9,000 postcards. We cannot sacrifice this opportunity. We need you involved. So will you get involved? Yes. Thank you. Let me say one more thing. We're fighting for one other thing, and I'm going to sit down. You know, I can talk all day. You've seen me at these rallies before. One other thing we're fighting for is something that we are sometimes uncomfortable to talk about, especially on our side of the aisle, the Democrats. We're fighting for goodness. Let me say that, yes. I'm not talking about some self-righteous, preachy goodness. I'm talking about the goodness that says, I want to treat my neighbor like myself. I want to care. We have forgotten in this country the power of service. My mom taught me. I'll talk about something else. My mom taught me, she taught me to, she said you have to go on the weekend and serve people, even though we had our own struggles. I'll tell you, every time I went and helped somebody out, I felt better. I always felt better about who I am as a person. I cared about that person more and who I am as a community. We are a network. This society works when we're helping and we're caring for each other. And we have suddenly replaced those values, the values of community, values of mutual respect, for this ugly culture of me first, bigger is better, take advantage of your friend, survival of the fittest, kill the guy, and winning is all that matters. Is that the kind of country we want to be? That is not who I want my country. This is not where I want my children to live if we have a country that preaches this. I love America. But the America I love is not only mighty or strong, that America is also good. So with that, I want to introduce somebody who I am so proud to come and to lend his support. He is a very busy man. People across the country want to see him. Please give a huge, huge round of applause for Tom Perez, Chairman Tom Perez.
Get this thing out, because I was a trial lawyer, and so trial lawyers walk around. Good morning, friends. 50 days till the weekend, folks. 50 days till the most important election of our lifetime. 50 days until health care is on the ballot. Let me ask a quick question. How many of y'all either have a pre-existing condition or know somebody with a pre-existing condition? How many of you know, keep your hands up, how many of you know someone or have been affected by the opioid crisis? I would have both my hands up on that. Folks, this is what's on the ballot in 50 days. Your health care is on the ballot in 50 days. Our future is on the ballot in 50 days. We have a clear choice in this race in 50 days. And folks, let me clarify what I mean when I say we have a clear choice. If you check your Twitter feeds right now, what we're learning is that Chris Collins will be on the ballot in 50 days. Okay? Now, this is a guy who I sued when I headed up the Civil Rights Division regarding the county jail. I got some history with him. One of the things he said is, I'm not here, I'm not going to build a Hilton. I wasn't asking him to build a Hilton, but pretty soon he's going to find out what the Hilton looks like. And I'll tell you, folks, and I'll tell you, it's not simply health care that's on the ballot, my friends. It is, and by the way, this trial, I will tell you now, as someone who prosecuted federal cases for many years, including with my good friend Bill Hochul, your former U.S. attorney, and a wonderful person, I can tell you that the star witness is not going to be a person in that case. The star witness is going to be the documents, because the documents not only indicted him, but will convict him. That is the reality. But he will be on the ballot in November. And again, this is a person who fought to take your health care away, to raise your taxes, and to hurt farmers in the 27th Congressional District of New York. You have a choice between a person who is a workhorse versus a person who is a show horse. You have a choice. You have a choice between a person who understands that health care is a right for all and not a privilege for a few, versus a person who voted something like 60 times to repeal the Affordable Care Act. You have a choice between a person who understands that farmers deserve to be treated with respect versus a person who is doing his level best to make it hard for dairy farmers, to make it hard for soybean farmers, to make it hard for farmers in this district and across America to make ends meet. You have a choice between a person who understands that the labor movement brought us the middle class in this country. Thank you for bringing us the weekend. Thank you, steel workers. Thank you, auto workers. Thank you, teachers. Thank you, IBEW. Thank you, SEIU. Thank you, AFSCME. Thank you to everyone in this room and the labor movement. Income inequality in this country. And I learned this lesson in Buffalo, New York. I slept 4 minutes from here last night at my brother's house. I grew up in Snyder. One of the most important lessons I learned in Buffalo, New York growing up is that the labor movement brought us the weekend, the labor movement brought us the middle class, and the labor movement deserves to be treated with respect. That's what Nate McMurray will do. That's what Brian Higgins has done. That's what Tim Kennedy has done. That's what John LaFalce DNA is all about. And you have an indicted felon who wants to continue to stick it to the labor movement. You have a choice between a candidate who understands that the Secretary of Education ought to believe in public education versus a candidate who ascribes to the Betsy DeVos model of governance. You have a choice between a candidate who understands that climate change is real and we need to do something about it every single day versus a candidate who's a denier. Folks, the choices couldn't be more stark. But as much as anything, integrity is on the ballot. It really is. Because the reason I love Western New York, and the reason I'm proud, if you go to my home computer in Maryland, it defaults to the Buffalo News. That is a fact. The reason 8 days ago I was at M&T Bank Stadium, I've put it out of my mind, but I was there. The reason is because I understand Buffalo values. I understand Western New York values. I understand the values of people in Cattaraugus County, people in Chautauqua County, people across this district. You are decent people. You want leaders who understand that it's not about me. And that's what I love about Nate. It's not about him. We need authentic leaders, leaders who understand that it's about something bigger than me. We mourned the death of John McCain. And I come to you as a Kennedy staffer whose boss worked very closely with Senator McCain. Senator McCain spoke at Senator Kennedy's funeral. He spoke at the opening of the Kennedy Institute in Boston. And they spoke about their mutual. They lived a life of service, a life of purpose, a life where country was always over party, a life where it wasn't about me, it was about we. You have a choice between a candidate who understands that the economy works best when we have shared prosperity versus a candidate who voted for a reckless tax cut that was a tax increase for his own constituents. That is a fact, folks. Salt isn't a spice to the people of New York. Salt is a very, very hard wound. He put salt in the wounds of hard-working Western New Yorkers by voting with folks. And by the way, make no mistake about it. I see the sign that says fighting like hell, just in case they're fighting like heck for Social Security, health care, for the working class. Folks, make no mistake about it. Your Social Security and your Medicare are on the ballot. There is no way to sustain the reckless tax cuts that were just passed over the objection, the strenuous objection of your wonderful Congressman Higgins. There's no way to sustain this without going after Social Security and Medicare. And who brought you Social Security and Medicare? It was the Democrats. Who brought you the Affordable Care Act? It was the Democrats. Who brought those protections to those of us with pre-existing conditions? Those are on the ballot, folks. Make no mistake about it. That's why when I talk about 50 days till the weekend, I mean it. We got work to do. I hear from folks, oh, you know, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's too much of an uphill climb. They told me that last year and said, Tom, you shouldn't be spending any money on Doug Jones in Alabama. We spent $1 million on Doug Jones in Alabama, and he's now in the United States Senate. That's what we did last year, folks. We won that race. We've won other races. We've seen turnout go up 84% in Democratic primaries since the first of the year. You saw what happened last week here in New York State. We can do this, folks. Si se puede. Yes, we can. But we can only do this, folks, if we're working together. Our democracy is on fire. It's on the ballot. But you know what, folks? Both the people here in this room, the people watching this, you are the first responders of our democracy. That's what you're doing. You're showing up here at 10:30 in the morning on a Monday. We could be wallowing in self-pity about the Buffalo Bills. We could be scratching our head wondering, why did Vontae Davis try to get ahead of the traffic? But no, you're sitting here. You're sitting here because you are those first responders. The reason we were able to win in Alabama, the reason we've been winning elsewhere, we've helped flip 43 seats from red to blue in the last 18 months. Seats that, I will be honest with you, seats that are far more Republican leaning than this district. We've been able to do it. We did it there, we can do it here. This is not a he can win, this is a he will win. But he will only win with your help. We've got to organize early. We got to organize everywhere. We have to put health care on the ballot because it is on the ballot. We have to put union organizing on the ballot because it is on the ballot. We have to put Medicare and Social Security on the ballot because it is on the ballot. We have to make sure we put our children's future on the ballot because it is on the ballot. And I know across this district there are Democrats, Republicans, and independents who share that vision of America that says honesty counts, integrity matters. America is great only when America is good. I know that's the case. I know that's the case because I've talked to so many people like that. And so you control our ability in 50 days to make sure we put guardrails. There are no guardrails in Washington right now. There are no checks and balances. As Congressman LaFalle said, Dr. King once said, we will not only rue the horrific acts of bad people, but the appalling silence of others. And the appalling silence of so many Republicans in Congress in the face of these attacks on our democracy, in the face of the attacks on health care, in the face of the attacks on the right to organize, are what history will note. This is truly, I am convinced, this is a movement moment. So when your kids or your neighbors ask you what you did today, you ought to tell them, I was part of a meeting of the movement. It's a movement to make America great again by making America good again. That's what we're doing. And we're organizing in every zip code. What I love about Nate, in addition to his competence, his authenticity, is he understands that he will be the congressperson for every zip code in this district. He'll be fighting for farmers. He'll be fighting here in Erie County. He'll be fighting in Chautauqua County. He'll be fighting in Monroe County. He'll be fighting in Cattaraugus County. He'll be fighting in Wyoming County and elsewhere. And the army that's in this room, the first responders across this district, the union movement who helped Connor Lamb win in Pennsylvania and has been helping us win everywhere across this country. That will be one of the many stories of November the 7th. So let's make sure we do this together because, folks, I come to you with unrelenting optimism. Yes, this is a dangerous moment, but this isn't the first time we've had dangerous moments in our nation's history. And every single time, we've seemingly gone off the rails. You know how we got back on the rails? With people like you. The most important word in a democracy is that simple two-letter word, we. And the most important thing that the we can do is the most important four-letter word in a democracy. Vote, 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 vote. That's how we win, folks. As I say in Spanish, cuando votamos, ganamos. When we vote, we win. That's what we're going to do in 50 days. And this person is going to serve you proud. Because tell those folks everywhere, integrity's on the ballot. Your health care's on the ballot. Your right to organize is on the ballot. Our future's on the ballot. And when we do that, we will win. Brian Higgins is spectacular, but he needs help. And he needs help in a big way so that we can take back America together. Thank you so much for the honor of being here. The DNC's all in. We're all partners together. Thank you so much.